Knueppel got back right. Cooper Flagg is no longer 17 years old, and the defense still dominates for Duke basketball. Big win over Georgia Tech.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome on into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Excited to have you here with us on Monday, December 23rd, 2024, as Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. We've got a big win for the Duke basketball team over Georgia Tech this past weekend to break down and recap, and we'll be able to do that with our good friend Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated throughout the course of today's show. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Watch our show each and every day on YouTube. Like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as your support means so much to us over there. We're on X at LO_Blue Devils, and I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So here he is with us on the program today, the aforementioned Conor O'Neill. It was an exciting game for the Blue Devils, who won 82-56 over Georgia Tech. And I think in the tease a moment ago, I really summed it up nicely for us, Conor. Knueppel got back right. We celebrated Cooper Flagg's birthday. He's no longer 17. And the defense once again told the tale for Duke.
Yeah, it really was, outside of like the last 6 minutes of the first half, a pretty dominant performance. I guess if you want to go back and really nitpick that, also the first 3 or 4 minutes, I think Duke might have had 1 point on their first 4 possessions. The offense was just a little bit slow to get going, but if I remember correctly, I think it was a Tyrese Proctor, a Sion James mid-range in the paint. And
yeah, Sion, yep.
I mean, they scored on 12 of 14 possessions from there. At one point, their points per possession in that stretch was over 2. So anytime you're getting 2 points every time you cross half court, you're playing offense pretty well. The little caveat in that is Georgia Tech is banged up. I didn't even realize, and it made me go back and add something to my injury, to my template to write previews. I didn't realize Kawasi Reeves was out for them. So he's a big player for them. I mean, they're missing like 2 other guys. They started Ryan Mutombo, who I think has played in like 2 or 3 games all year. Not to take anything away from Duke, but like that is part of the equation here, where Georgia Tech is just kind of a shell of itself, and they're not dealing with a full deck. And John was quick to point that out in the post game. But I mean, I don't know what else you could have wanted from Duke. It really was. It was everything about a comfortable win that you would have wanted to see, other than just kind of ending the first half on a sour note and spending the 20 minutes of halftime wondering like, oh shit, is Duke going to blow another game in Atlanta? And they put that to bed in the first, 8 to 10 minutes of the second half, felt like.
Right. Yeah, no. And just to be able to get the offense going, and to your point, I mean, when you have a run of scoring on 12 of 14 possessions in the first half, there have been slower starts to games this year. And sure, you could point to those first 3 or 4 minutes, but at least the defense wasn't putting Duke in those big deficits that we saw in, the Kansas, the Kentucky, the Auburn, jumping out to 13-2 leads that they had. And then finally the offense kind of got into rhythm. So it's great to see, man, because it's so early in the year. There's going to be 10 days now between the last game played and the game coming up on December 31st. And as we've talked about, this team will get better game by game. And 12 games in now, I don't know how you can't not say this team continues to just improve every time they step on the floor.
Yeah, and I'm not to toot my own horn or anything, but it kind of brings up a column I wrote last year. And the column at that point, I think I wrote it in late January or early February. The staple that John has kind of established for himself, and I know it's crazy to say that about I think John's 37 now, 37-year-old coach who's had 2.5 seasons on the bench. But what we know about John so far is A, if you don't play defense hard, you're not going to play, period.
Right.
B, his teams get better throughout the year. Like each year, his team has gotten better as the year has gone on at a pretty quick rate. Like there's not been that much slippage. You had the 10-game winning streak in his first season after the Virginia debacle and blown call. And then last year, they lose in the did they lose? No, they didn't lose in the Champions Classic. They lost to Arizona at home. And then they lost the other 2 games in early December, one of them being at Georgia Tech. And you're kind of like, oh man, the world is spinning here.
Right.
Then they went up to New York and won the game. Which Big Ten team did they play up there?
We played Baylor up in New York.
Yeah, that's right. Big 10, Big 12, same difference.
Same thing.
It's just it's hard to quantify. It's just you feel like Duke is going to get better from where they are in November to December, from December to January, and so on and so forth. And that's how this team was wound up with an ACC championship and an Elite Eight appearance in the last 2 seasons. And this one is ahead of that growth process. This one, they haven't lost 3 games. They lost 2 of them, and then they beat Auburn, beat 1 at Louisville. They're on a 6-game winning streak where it looks like they have no fatal flaws that can be exposed right now that we're going to have to talk about, like, oh, they're not doing this well, and that's going to get them beat when they play Pitt or Clemson or somebody in the ACC that's capable of beating them. It's an encouraging sign for a young coach, for a young team. They're still fairly young, even though they've got the older experienced guys that came in as transfers.
I love getting to watch it. I mean, game by game, this team continues to get better. And that's been so clear. That Auburn win for Duke is only going to look better and better as we get closer to Selection Sunday. If Duke fans missed it over the weekend, Auburn plays Purdue and beats them by 25 plus, and just an absolute beatdown. Auburn has a nation-leading 4 wins against AP top 25 teams, and their metrics are just filthy, unbelievable. So the fact that Duke was able to beat them inside Cameron Indoor is going to speak wonders. But I want to talk about the growth that we've already seen from this team this first month, and they do get better throughout the course of the year, kind of continuing what we're talking about. You had a back and forth with Coach Scheyer after the game where he's trusting your math on the number of days that it had been in between trips to Atlanta. People might not have any idea what we're talking about here, Conor. So tell them the story and kind of Coach Scheyer's reaction to it, because that was fun.
I'm glad. I'm both glad and hurt that you gave me lessons in double checking math when you're sitting there pulling up Ken Palm.
Tell folks the story here.
So I should have looked this up before I should have looked it up the day before, honestly. But we're sitting there in Atlanta. Obviously, I was down in Atlanta for the Champions Classic in November. I pulled up the Ken Palm, and I'm looking at the dates, and I'm looking at, okay, Duke played Kentucky in Atlanta on November 12th. It's December 21st. How many days since, how many days between games? And that'd be a great way to frame a question to Jon of, like, how much growth have you seen in this many days? I added 12 and 21. Obviously, the 21 number is the one you want there, but there are 30 days in October or November.
Yeah.
And so instead of using the 18 days that were left from November 12th, the game against Kentucky, to the end of November, I used November 12th. So I asked Jon in 33 days how much growth had he seen. I was able to he said a couple times, he phrased in his answer, like, I'm trusting you on that. I'm trusting you on the math, 33 days.
Yeah.
So anytime that happens, I always second guess my math. And I went back and I was like, oh, yeah, it was 39. So I was able to tell Jon, like, 39. My bad, coach.
Yeah.
I don't know that it makes that much of a difference. Like, but I just kind of worded around it in my story. Like,
right.
You put in the quotes for what he actually said, and then you put in parentheses or you cut quotes off and add the context in the end. Because, I mean, I think the general gist and point remains. Like, in the last 39 days, look at how far Duke has come. Look at the late game execution stuff that they failed against Kentucky with. Look at the way they got punched in the mouth in the second half and didn't have as much of an answer. I mean, you can also point to Common Malawach getting cramps, Sion James hurting his shoulder and missing the last 10 and a half minutes of that one.
Yep.
But you can also point to that team down the stretch. Their only offense was through Cooper Flagg. They couldn't make a shot. They didn't make a 3 in the second half, I think. look at how far they've come. And to Jon's point, and this is what I want to write when I hopefully get a few minutes to sit down and write during this 10-day break for them, where he sees the biggest growth is on defense. This team locks you up defensively. They're number one in Ken Palm.
Crazy to think about because they've been so good the whole, wow.
Yeah, they were number one, I think, after the Auburn game. Then they slipped to number 2 behind Tennessee.
Yeah.
And they just overtook Tennessee. So Tennessee has a game the night that we're recording. So if Tennessee goes out and locks down, I think they play Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
If they go out and hold them to like 0.7 points per possession or something like that, it might be different by the time this gets out there. But yeah, it's their defense is really, really good.
It's been fun to watch, and I'm excited to see where this team's going to be 39 days from now as we continue to look forward. I always go to Google when I've got questions like that, Conor. I never trust my math, and I'm often saying how many days from now until my birthday, for example. I'll put it in and try to figure it out that way.
You know what? I put in my story also how many days it's been since they played at Georgia Tech last year. And I even scribbled out the math on the back of a notepad page and then put it in Google to double check and make sure it was 385 days since December, whatever it was. It was early December last year. So it was more than
yeah. I always straight to Google, man. That's the way to do it. All right. Well, let's talk about the team in this one over Georgia Tech. We'll dive a little bit further into the box score after we take our first time out here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Did you know that Rocket Money can help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or were paying for twice? Definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and the Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. Whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go ahead and go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, we're working again, and we were talking about this Duke game, the win that the Blue Devils had over Georgia Tech this weekend. Again, the final score in this one was 82-56. Let's get to the best news. Knueppel finding his shooting stroke once again early in the first half. He's able to get a couple of looks to fall and knock down. He finishes with the team high 18 points in this game, going 4 of 8 from three-point range. I picked Con to be my kind of player to click in the George Mason game. I thought he would be the leading man there. I was off by a game, Connor. I missed it by one game, but I'm glad it happened back at ACC play. That was big for Duke to get Con back going.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just saw this. It was something completely unrelated, but somebody was touting their pick, and it was, I think they were off by a year. I think it was like a NFL football player breakout year, and it was like never wrong, just not on,
just
never
a year
on
late
or something like that. Yeah, just early, never on time with predictions, just early, or never wrong. I've botched that all.
Whatever it is, yeah, that's how I feel about Knueppel. Then, thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean, the most impressive thing to me, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not having asked him this when he was at the podium with Jon, was he missed his first shot. Like, I always think that if a guy is going to have that breakout game where he's not been shooting well and not been scoring well, when the breakout happens, it's always going to happen for when a guy hits his first shot and gets going immediately. He missed his first one. I think it was in those first 4 possessions where Duke wasn't clicking yet. Then the biggest thing becomes the next shot he took with confidence and stroked it. And it was off from there. And I've talked before this year about how he's got that shooter mentality, and when the first one goes in, you can basically count on the next 2 or 3 of them coming in a short span. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers. It'd take a lot of research through play-by-play stats to go find it, but it feels like every time he hits one, he's usually got 2 more coming in the next 3 to 5 minutes. And the players know that. They're smart. They know that after he gets one to look for him a little more. There's an inverse of that where, after you hit your first shot, you got a little more pep in your step. You're cutting a little harder because you know that your next one is going to feel good too. So that was big for him. And I think based on what Steve Weissman had told me, he was down there talking to guys before the game. Con got on a plane. They all splinter for Christmas break. So right. Con got on a plane and went up to Wisconsin to see family for the next few days.
Well, hopefully he enjoys some of that family time, and we can continue the great shooting from him going into the next few ACC games as well. Just a complete game for Con. Team leading 32 minutes, team leading 18 points, 5 assists. That was the most on the team. Had 4 rebounds, had a block, had a steal. I mean, just really did a little bit of everything for him. And that's been awesome to see him kind of bounce back like that and carry this over. And I think it just shows how dangerous this Duke basketball team can be when everybody's out there clicking.
I'll tell you what, not to take anything away from Connor's assist number, but JJ, I don't know about your ball handling, but if I were able to at least like turn a corner on a pick and roll, I might be able to have 3 or 4 assists with Common Malawach being the roller.
Just throw it up there.
Yeah, and that was I'm sure you probably saw it from the Duke official account where they're putting up a practice clip of Jon saying like, "Hey, this guy's 7'2". We need to throw him the ball." And he's mentioned that a couple times in press conferences too, where Jon thinks that's kind of an underutilized aspect of Duke's offense, and I know it was utilized to the point where Common had 15 points.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I think 4 of those were dunks or near dunks where he's kind of above the rim and throwing it down.
Yep.
He had the one when Georgia Tech went zone early. He had a late shot clock, like throw something up there from 7 feet and happened to bank it in. That was when everything was going right for Duke's offense. But yeah, Sion even told us something in the locker room a few games back where he was like, yeah, we sometimes forget that he's 7'2" and as athletic as he is. I think part of the players aren't going to criticize Common for this, but sometimes they throw him and he's not ready for him or he's not looking.
Right.
And that's when you wind up having him catch the ball and he's flat-footed, and it's like, well, it's hard to go up when you're a big man and you got everybody swiping at it when you're in the lane.
Yeah, to your point, it's a two-way street, and I'm glad that Sion and the players kind of take accountability on their end there. But big time game for Common, and then also want to highlight Cooper Flagg on his birthday. So we no longer get the 17-year-old Cooper Flagg. It's his debut as an 18-year-old. He had some dunks living high above the rim with his performance, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 13 points on the day in 28 minutes of action. And I think Conor, bold prediction, he's going to be just as good as an 18-year-old as he was when he was 17. If not better.
Not that I'm like disappointed that a birthday happens, because what are you going to do? You're not going to like delay him or anything. But my only little bit of tinge of disappointment here is I thought the best I don't know, it wasn't a chant so much as it was just like random crazies yelling it from behind us. But a couple times at home games when we get fouled hard, there'd be somebody behind us yelling, "He's a minor."
That's good.
me and a couple guys that sit around me always crack up on those. I don't know. I never know if they can see me laughing from over my shoulder or not. But like, if one of those people who's yelled that this year happens to hear this, like,
very clever crazies. Yeah, very clever.
It's been appreciated. No, he actually, his parents were down there. They were on their way out to see his brother's game. He plays for Greensboro Day. So as everybody else was splintering to different parts of the country, Cooper and parents were headed back up to North Carolina to head over to Greensboro.
Both Ace and Cooper playing on their 18th birthday.
I joked with somebody about like, it's easy to forget, but like he's a twin and his twin didn't reclass up and the family
it's
moved
Ace's
to
birthday
Carolina.
too.
Yeah. And it's like, it's his birthday too. That's how it works when you're a twin.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So a win for Duke. They're now 2-0 in conference play, 10-2 overall on the season. And still not crazy to think that this Duke team could get even better in the games moving forward. We'll highlight that and a few more other things when we return here on this episode of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, of course, America's #1 sports book. The NFL playoffs are almost here. How fun was that action yesterday with so many playoff storylines to follow? The Panthers got back in the win column and eliminated the Arizona Cardinals from playoff contention, and I love following all that action with our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's more than it usually is. Right now, $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Tonight in the NFL, you've got a big game, Monday Night Football between the Saints and Packers from Lambeau Field. Green Bay favored by 14.5 from our friends over at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chances at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, forward we go. Again, we've got Conor O'Neill here with us. We're talking about the Duke victory. Days off, Conor, until they take on Virginia Tech. Great start to ACC play for Duke, and but good to get the holiday time. Like you said, the players traveled away from Atlanta this weekend on their own so that they were able to go get some family time here for the holidays before getting back into Durham to get ready.
Yeah. It's everybody thinks that there's a 10-day break. They're not practicing for these 9 days. Like the practices that they had, the 7-day break between what were the games? Incarnate Word, I think, and
George Mason.
George Mason. They had exams, but also they went hard. Tyrese Proctor told a couple of people after that game that they had some practices that were like they were back in the summer, like they were going hard and going often. Not that exams aren't important, but this one's a little more relaxed. Like they're going away. They'll get back. I'm a lot more familiar with the way Wake schedules. It's like return from Christmas, and they'll do some 2-a-days after Christmas and before their next game. Not entirely sure the way Duke does it, but most teams either get their players back on Christmas Day or the next day. And I mean, Duke has until the 31st, so they still get about half of that time to again boil in and work. And there's no classes, there's no homework to do, there's no papers. I mean, they're basketball players. The common refrain you'll hear at this time of year is they get about a month or so to be pros. Like the only thing on their mind is basketball. Not to throw any stones at Virginia Tech, not to jinx Duke into anything, but it's not exactly the most grueling game that they have on the other side of this break either. Home game against a Virginia Tech team that has been woefully underperforming and kind of at this point just flat out say underfunded on December 31st.
And the ACC is not in good standing as a whole, as a conference.
Oh my God.
North Carolina, unfortunately for Duke fans, but fortunately for the rest of the ACC, picked up a much-needed victory over UCLA on Saturday, a top 20 team for the Tar Heels, and kind of helps the ACC's strength of schedule and percentages there in the non-conference. But outside of that, it's been bad. And it kind of the odds, according to our friends at FanDuel and other places as well, are skyrocketing with Duke's chances to win the ACC in the regular season. which is fun to see on the Duke side of things. Obviously, you got to go out there and take care of business now. But, a tough stretch the last few weeks for the conference as a whole.
And I've been – I don't want to say leading the charge, but I think I've been on one of the most ardent defenders of this league at some points in the last 2 to 3 years, as the perception has just kind of dwindled to where it is now. And there's no defending the league this year. I mean, good Lord. They took it on the chin from the SEC. Maybe the one good thing you can say is the SEC gave it on the chin to everybody else. It's not like they lost a ton of games to the Big 12 or the Big 10. But good Lord, the ACC. You got so many teams that were expected to be, 22 to 25 wins. Wake, Miami, Carolina, I'll throw in there, even though they just picked up a nice win. I mean, they're 7-5. It's going to be a weird next 2 to 2.5 months for Duke, because they're going to be everybody's one shining spot at getting a resume building, like, marquee win for their tournament resumes. And these are all these teams that have been underperforming in the non-con. Like, a lot of times, like, Duke is going to be their last chance at really scoring one of those games, even if they're playing them in January. Like, it's going to be Wake Forest is going to have to beat Duke on January 25th, or the next, 6 weeks of their season are just basically running out the string. It's that type of outlook for the rest of the ACC. And on the Duke side of things, if they're going to get a 1 seed, like, the non-con strength of schedule helps immensely. Yeah. That's why Jon scheduled the way he did, or one of the reasons, one of the benefits. But I think it's probably going to take 18-2 in this league, and then maybe win the ACC championship, at least get to the tournament championship game. Man, Carolina going 17-3 last year was the most wins that anybody in the ACC has had since they went to a 20-game schedule. And that's, I think we're in year 6 of the 20 games. So it's not like it's a big sample size, but again, 17-3 is the best anybody has done with the 20-game schedule.
That's so impressive. And that's a kind of a big bar to aim for if you're Duke this season. No slip-ups in conference play, so hopefully they're able to keep that one going. Even a team like Clemson, they get the big win over Kentucky, one of only 2 wins in that challenge for the ACC. Duke and Clemson pick up those wins. But then they drop games to South Carolina and to Memphis over the last week and a half.
The Memphis game was such a choke, too. They were up 5 with a minute or minute and a half left. I mean, the South Carolina game, you can almost understand the South Carolina when it's a rivalry game, and I think it was either in Columbia or in a neutral site. It was in Columbia. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that one you kind of you shouldn't lose to that one because they're one of the only bad teams in the SEC.
Right.
But I mean, the Memphis game, you're at home, you're up, you're there. Like, the game is yours to win, and they choke that way.
It's going to be fun to watch what the ACC does throughout the course of the league and what Duke's able to do when they come back again with Virginia Tech on December 31st. I know that you'll have plenty of great coverage for the people over at Devils Illustrated. How can they best support you, Conor, and where can they find all your work?
Yeah, get over to Devils Illustrated. It's duke.rivals.com. Got a good story up down there about the game in Georgia Tech. Football team is adding some difference-making transfers right now, and I'm trying to hit all those as I can.
No doubt.
And we'll have bowl coverage, right? Bowl game coming up on January 2nd, and we'll have basketball coverage, of course. I mean, I could close my eyes and write a basketball story. Just a matter of trying to get the time to do it and pound it out. So we'll have coverage up there often.
Happy holidays to you, man. Merry Christmas, and we'll do this again soon, okay?
Thanks, JJ. I appreciate it.
All right, that's Conor O'Neill joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Really appreciate his thoughts and insight with us over the year, and we've got many more conversations coming with Conor in 2025. That'll do it for today's show. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast feed and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.